Welcome to the second half of TVC Breakfast this Thursday. The Central Bank of Nigeria has increased the monetary policy rate, that's the MPR, to 27.50%, up from 27.25%. CBN Governor Yemi Cardoso announced this decision, saying the committee voted unanimously to raise the MPR by 25 basis points from 27.25% to 27.50%. They also decided to maintain the cash reserve ratio at 50% for deposit money banks and 16% for merchant banks. While the Apex Bank states that the move is intended to reduce the money supply in circulation and curb inflation, there are concerns that higher interest rates could hinder business growth, particularly for small and medium enterprises in the country. Well, joining us for this discussion is Chartered Accountant and Public Affairs Analyst Sheson Okwade. Welcome once again.
Good morning, Kemi, and good morning,
Compliment of the season to you, SS.
Well, I don't know what to say, but compliment of the season.
Thank you, thank you. That's fine. That's fine.
You said compliment of the season. You know,
and he's asking what season.
Thank you, Ibrahim, for that which you asked, because every of the show I've been attending, anchored by a woman, they are full of life with this Yuletide season coming up. And most of the time we are like, what is happening? Because they're on the receiving side and we are the donor. Well, same to you. Let's say compliment of the season.
No, that's fine. I hope you're educated now.
Okay, you don't understand it.
All right. So here we are again. I know maybe some form of fatigue may be going through your mind right now, because this is not the first time that the MPR would be raised, that the MPC would be meeting on the MPR, the monetary policy rate now. So we have yet another increment of, the interest rate. Does it surprise you? And what next for you?
Kemi, thank you very much. When I received this news 2 days ago when the MPC met and that it will actually be increased again, I asked myself, what is actually the faith of the SMEs? As we currently speak, I understand the position of the government, the monetary policy, with the fact that let's tame inflation. Well, the question I've asked myself over time is it only the increase of interest rate that can tame or curb inflation, or used in mopping up funds in circulation? Because one of the reasons is that there are excess funds out there they need to mop up, and when you increase the interest rate, what you're trying to do is to reduce the purchasing power, the expenses at which people say. But I keep asking myself, who are we concentrating some of these things on? The major people who are actually in possession of the funds that we are complaining are in excess in circulation, are not actually being affected by some of these policies. Because I will tell you for free, a lot of high network individuals that you expect to invest critically in the productive arm of the country because of the policy of the central bank, they hardly invest into it. So they would rather go ahead, invest in bonds, invest or take the money, convert it, and send offshore rather than investing in the country. So what is the face of an average small medium business enterprise? All you do. Now that you've increased it to 27.5, that's the same we're experiencing that as far as the situation is concerned. The average that you get from the bank, because I happen to actually be mopping out funds from the bank, it's between 35 to 40. In fact, there are some that is as high as 50%. When you talked about the small, medium financial institution. But when you talk of the major stream, you talked about 35, 36. I asked myself the question, what investment? While we started business, the markup you give on an average business is maybe 10, 15%, so that at least you can afford. Now, when you have your cost of borrowing as high as 36%, what margin are you going to put in place to actually be able to cater for your own operating expense, one, and that the clients you are actually going to carry out those things out for will be able to pay for it. So I feel the area that the CBN are looking into some of these things, for me, personal, is really not the area to look into, because there are no cushion effect for the small and medium enterprise. And for every country to survive, these middle class people are the one that you must actually give those preferences to, and they seem to exist as we speak. As a matter of fact, what we have currently in this country is either you are rich or you are poor. There is no class for the middleman, because an average SMEs keep collapsing every day. Even the so-called businesses. I will give you a practical example. Eateries, where you can have eateries very close to you. I can tell you that a lot of them are actually consolidating. Because, one, when you take out the cost of funds, the cost of operation itself for an average businessman is unsustainable. So when you put all those things together, you ask yourself, is this the way to go? All because we want to mop out funds in circulation. Ask yourself the question, is the fund indeed out in the hands of those that need it, or in the hand of few that you need to actually bring out? That's why I will support some of the things that the fiscal policy. I keep asking, there seems to be a disconnect between the two arms that needs to grow our economy. That's the fiscal policy and those that are actually working monetary. The fiscal policy are actually on the people, high network people, to say we will reduce the tax burden on those that are low at the lower end and concentrate more on the high network, because that's where the funds is. You can't go ahead and be killing businesses. As a matter of fact, an SME that is still surviving now, has a lot of debts hanging on him. And you ask yourself, how do you expect them to cope? So for me, this that has done, claiming that you reduce inflation is not reduced, because if you've done it for second, third, fourth time, and we are not getting value, people seems to be going down below the bar than raising the bar, then I think we should have a rethink of some of these policies.
So if you look at historical perspective, although you said that it's been done, time and again, just like you said, they are trying to, there's cited inflationary pressure and that of naira stability as concerns. So do you feel the latest increase, if you compare it to the past policy moves, do you think the timing and the intent are really not in tandem, that they really do not go hand in hand?
They are not going hand in hand, I must tell you, Brian. They are not going hand in hand. Because I will ask, what are the motivating things that you are giving to an average businessman that want to excite him to actually invest in businesses in Nigeria? Nothing. I'm practically one. Is it the cost of energy you want to say? Do you know that practically every day people are retrenching? So when you are retrenching staff, you can say, fine, it's good. But that person that is actually being pulled out of either paid employment can have creativity to start up something on its own. Where is the availability of funds for him to actually carry out that? While we were growing up, at least of the little age where we are, people rushed to financial institutions to borrow money. Is that still sustainable? The answer is no. At what point are we going to get to that level where you can borrow at single digit? The initial example I gave, where you have to give your markup at 10, 15, was when the interest rate was on single digit. There are other areas where we need to concentrate on, aside this increasing the interest rate. One of it is, how are we actually looking for a way to domesticate the things to reduce the pressure on foreign exchange? We are not concentrating in that area. We are looking at interest rates. A lot of things that we believe can be produced, manufactured in this country, are even being done by our neighboring countries in West Africa.
So you feel like this, the drive for this administration to, quickly move the economy, upward would definitely slow it down. Is that what you're thinking?
From this that we're saying, it would definitely do, from my calculation. Because people don't have access to funds. So how do you want them to grow? And when they don't have funds to ride on to do some of these businesses, you go to the other side to say, okay, even with the little resources that I have, how much can I do? Small and medium enterprise cannot even cope with the cost of operation. As we speak, a lot of people in the energy sector have been moved from the current to band A, even when the threshold set are not being met. So how do you expect the survival of such business? Somebody who, as at now, who before now, was paying between 50 and maybe 70,000, maybe recharge, even when you have a prepaid on monthly basis for your office. And all of a sudden, you are migrated from that particular platform, either B or C or D, to A, in the name of enjoying availability of supply, and those things are not actually there for those periods, and you're paying ×3 of what you used to pay before. Where do you accommodate that cost? So for me, we seem to be working from one end and not looking at the other area. How much do we have? Possibly, I would say, look at the cost of even movement when it comes to petroleum products. Congratulations to the federal government. We heard that Port Harcourt refinery has started functioning. And I asked myself, the only thing that will make sense to a common man like me, now I'm not in the class of those, the only thing that will make sense to me, that indeed Port Harcourt refinery has started functioning, is to come up and wake up that today the price of fuel is now 900. I don't even want to go to the level of saying, let's take it to 500, let's take it to... We can have that effect to say, now we have somebody that can complement what we have in the other area, and the cost of logistics that you provide to your staff, yourself, can definitely, reduce. But when you come up to say, okay, this is up and running, and we can't feel the impact as a common man, then nothing has been achieved. I am waiting in the next few weeks. We are going to December. Thank God Kenny has started greeting us a compliment of the season. You understand the pressure of celebrating this season, this period. We normally have high influx and high cost of everything. I think government needs to be very sensitive. If indeed that has actually come to mainstream, we should look for a way to say we now have something complementing what we had before. Right. Dangote alone cannot decide the cost. What exactly? Because we've asked the question, what is actually the cost of producing this thing? For us to know exactly what you're actually availing to us. So these are areas where government need to look into. Not just looking in the area of increasing interest rate through MPR, without looking at other areas. If we don't have any business survivor, definitely those working in the fiscal arm of the government, in raising tax and all other things, would not be able to accomplish their aim. Because it is when the business survives that they can pay taxes.
Okay, we'll come back to this conversation. Let's take a break and we'll be back.
At break time, when my champ needs to keep going, he's going to need his favorite snack, containing calcium, iron, and fiber.
Milo Energy Snacks, snack of future champions. Milo!
Welcome back, and thanks a lot for staying with us on TVC Breakfast. Sheson Okwade, Chartered Accountant, is still here with us. The Public Affairs Analyst has been speaking to the issue of the federal government, the Central Bank of Nigeria, that is raising its interest rate. Of course, it's 27.50%. That's what it stands now, up from 27.25%. So far, you feel this is not going to mean well for small businesses, for businesses that are already struggling. But let's try to balance that out with what you see on ground in form of existing interventions by the federal government for manufacturers, for small and medium scale enterprises. Interventions from the BOI, for example, the Bank of Industry. Tell us what you think is wrong with how adequate you feel these mechanisms are, and how you feel this can be done. Because, you know, on paper, the government comes out at periodic intervals to speak to how Nigerians can access these interventions, especially businesses, you know, to boost the economy. But how do you see the environment right now?
Kemi, you see, most of the time, I will always say that we are good on paper. But when it comes to implementation of some of these policies, you see inconsistency. And that's what has not been assisting our economy, if you ask me. A lot of intervention from government. But does it get to the right hand? That's the question you always ask. This country is quite interesting that because I would say we don't have a good system, people try as much as possible to do what they can do for their personal gain, not minding the end result of what actually comes up there. Don't forget, from time memorial, we've heard about the agriculture sector. A lot of reliefs are actually given by the Bank of Agri, BOI, you know, anchor borrowers and the likes. Kemi, you and I can answer this question. Has that grown that sector till date? The answer is no. If you're able to even provide the funds, I keep saying that it's not always about the funds. There are other parameters that you need to check that are actually working to make sure that the funds you are availing to that other party is actually being used for what it's meant for. You are providing funds for the agriculture sector, but there is high level of insecurity and intermittent clashes. You heard about the news of what happened in Benue, in a particular community where there were clashes. So if somebody has borrowed fund and is really not secured, so what becomes of that funds? Will there be any avenue to recoup back his investment when it's not secure? So most of the time we look at one side, we leave the other side. Those incentives that are actually being given, my question, and I will always ask, is that do the right set of people have access to some of these funds as expected? The answer is always no, because we have a lot of, at least people like us are quite exposed. And we ask ourselves the question, you go to some of this in the stringent rule, the bureaucratic setting that you have in between, which for me, as a finance person, I appreciate. But most of the time, even when you meet up, you find it difficult to have access to some of this. We are on public TV. If some of those interventions being provided by the government are actually directed to the right set of people that are actually in need of the funds, we won't be where we are. And I will always say, when you make provision of the fund, make provision of the enabling environment. Otherwise, the person will get his investment in of pumping in those funds, and the next minute, you have other things that are actually taking away the funds siphoned. A lot of people, see, I will tell you, for we businessmen, as we speak, you can't have projection for yourself in the next, not even in the next 2 months. I can't give a client. Those days you give out PFIs, you give out, quotes to individual, and you say this is valid for 90 days. Ask an average businessman. I cannot extend it more than 7 days. Even without 7 days, I'm gapping with it to say I don't know what will become of us in the next 2 days, with some of the inconsistency that we're actually speaking to. So when you provide those interventions to have access to some of those funds, are we taking care? Consistency in the other areas. You and I were here just overnight. We just woke up and the price of fuel is this rate. And you know the effects, the ripple effect on practically everything. The logistics will go high, the cost of food will go up, the staff will struggle to come to the office. A lot of people cannot do 5 days a week, should be told, because the staff, if the state on their, a lot of states now have actually, have this staggered way of working, so that their staff. So if the state cannot cope, how much more private businesses? So a lot of things are happening. You can make provision of some of these reliefs, some of these things to cushion the effect of businesses, but are the right set of people accessing it? And when they access it, is the business environment conducive for them to be able to? A lot of them will have access to the fund, and it becomes struggle for them to be able to repay back, and that will start running to bad debt, because you have a plan. Somebody who has at 6 months ago have applied for a loan in a bank to carry out a business. 6 months ago, I'm sure you know the price of fuel was on 1,025. It was still around 800, 700. So how do you expect that person, that business, to cope with that pressure, with the increase in other areas? So it's not about making provision of those things. You must make other areas that assist the business growth to actually be made available.
If you look at sectoral implications, talk about the agriculture sector, the services sector, etc., how this will definitely impact them. You've actually mentioned it. But some other people are also looking to have houses, shelter over their head. Mortgages, housing deficits, we're having problem here already. So how do you think this will definitely impact the mortgage affordability and overall housing initiatives?
Well, it's not going to assist in any way. It seems as if one is sounding pessimistic, but it's the reality. Before now, you can get properties for few millions. Talked about 30 million, 40 million, maybe in an area that you feel that it is. What is the cost of rent as we speak? Let me even go to some of the rural, where you call rural area in the urban setting, where a lot of people migrated to have access. Gone are the days when you can get landed property for less than $1 million. There is nowhere you want to go now. Even in my village, they no longer send land in thousands. So imagine the investment on the part of a real estate person. I watch some of your presenters who are into that real estate business. Yeah. You ask them the question, what was the value of this particular thing before now? So if I, as an investor, needs to acquire 10 hectares of land, compare what it used to be and what it is now. The funds are not available because the cost has actually gone high. Practically everybody is being affected. So if this is the only thing I have to survive, all I need to do is to put more funds on it. And you are coming to acquire it, what it is. Go to the automobile sector. Before now, you can afford to change your cars every 4 years. Is that what is obtainable? When a car you bought 4 years ago was as at like 4 million. Now you are talking about having close to over 12 million to get the same vehicle. Vehicle that you got 4 years ago. Now it's like ×3 of it. So do you expect people to start patronizing automobile company for new vehicles? The answer is no. So I feel government needs to go back to the drawing board. How can we relieve this pressure that we have on corporate organization? A lot of companies have stopped providing official vehicles. What they resort to is the alien business, providing those services for them. Even those that are in the logistics business no longer have the affordability to even buy new vehicles to carry out that business that they're actually doing. So you can see the ripple effect of some of these things, and we keep saying we want to mop out funds in circulation. Is there funds indeed in circulation? The answer is, to us, the layman, no. Because check out an average person. Can you even get up to 5,000 in their pocket when they move around? They are not having that access. But we all know the area of concentration where this is, and I think we should be intentional to see how we mop those funds to make available. When you're able to mop the funds from the high network that you feel that those things are in their hands, you will be able to use that to assist the middle class. Government needs to be intentional. I will continue to say, to build back the middle class, to stand in the gap between the elites and the low-trodden. As it is, we don't have the existence of middle class, and with that, the economy cannot grow.
In terms of the impact of these increments now on the forex stability, what are your thoughts?
Well, I will continue to say that when you are not producing, you expect foreign exchange to come down. The answer is no. Practically, even people, things that we can have in here, because of the cost of fund, cost of operation, it's even cheaper to bring those things in. So people will travel, bring those things in. Are they bringing it in Naira? The answer is no. They are using foreign exchange. Until we make the business environment on our own soil, more affordable. We are into some of these things. For you to assemble certain things together, here in this country is far higher than you bringing those things, even with the high cost of the foreign exchange. When you get it high up there, they are telling you that this particular thing is for $40 over there. When you calculate that $40, even with the current rate, and compare to you producing that same product locally, you discover that your cost of production is far higher than you bringing it in. So until government is intentional about seeing how to domesticate some of the things that we are doing locally, that we start having belief and confidence in all that we do, we may not see foreign exchange, growing to anywhere. We started at what rate? 600 at the beginning of this administration. As we speak, we are talking about 1,700, above 8,700, and you expect improvement. I think we need to go back to the drawing board. It's quite disheartening that a lot of us have confidence in this administration, but the reality is not actually speaking to the part that we expect.
But can we look at the bright side of this? Because they say that rising interest rates is seen as, sometimes seen as a boon for foreign investors into the debt instruments. So do you not see it as, as a move that will enhance Nigeria's appeal to foreign investors?
When you appeal to them to come in, is it only about bringing their funds? I've put up other parameters. The cost of operations on the part of those people. So they can bring in their funds, but the business climate is not actually allowing them to have a focus. What is the consistency about some of our policies? We should not just talk about when you increase it, you attract those other things. How consistent are we? Can people have projection? Before now, you can have projection as finance person. We will sit down and say, this is what we are projecting for this year, next year, and 3 years. You can have 5 years projection for your businesses. But as we speak, circumstances have actually defiled that you cannot even have projection for the next 6 months. Because something will actually alter your plan. And if care is not taken, because you can apply for loan as we speak now, you get it within 24 hours. I'm sure you know there are certain processes that those things will follow. And maybe you are getting it in a month's time to actually sustain a business. And all of a sudden, things changed to increase your bottom line. How do you cope with that particular? So when you say that it's going to affect foreign the foreign direct investors are not just looking only in the area of interest rates, for them, but we speak more to the business environment and the survival of that business in the environment where they are investing in. And that's why we say we must be holistic in our view as against just standing in one area to say we are actually doing this for this purpose.
Right. And, earlier on at the start of this conversation, you spoke about, okay, so if the federal government says it wants to mop up excess funds, you say these excess funds are not even in the hands where they should be with. They are in a minority. Why don't we tax this minority more and so that the imbalance, can be corrected? But I just want more clarification as to which direction you feel the government should be headed as we, of course, look to the new year. Of course, the spendings in the new month ahead is also going to be another factor. But then there is still the big question about what next, projections for growth, the economy. Help us to better understand, this issue of excess money in circulation and options for the federal government to address the imbalances.
Okay, well, maybe at this point, I won't want to be seen to be celebrating few works that is being done by the committee set up by Mr. President on fiscal policy headed by Taiwo Oyedele. I think some of their projection might seem to be things. I'm sure you know the new tax reform is actually being kicked against by the elite. I'm sure the common man do not even have deeper understanding of what it looks like.
The government says it is speaking for the masses in terms of multiple taxation
and
regimes.
you can see what the legislators are actually saying, that it's actually against the masses. But if you sit down to look at what those things are actually meant for, they've been able to rate the tax exemption for individuals, for corporate organizations, and be able to impose more on the high net worth. So who are the people that will actually decide the fate of those bills to go? Is it not the high net worth?
And they too are kicking against it.
So they are the one that you're actually moving against. they spoke about the issue of derivation on this thing. Majority of the people did not see the in-depth of what they are actually looking at because we are used to a specific way of doing things. They are saying, no, this derivation is against one section of the country without having an in-depth of what it looks like. Because what those team are actually projecting is to say, see, things are produced in Lagos, we understand, for value-added tax, the major concentration should not come to Lagos. These things are consumed in Kano, they are consumed in Kaduna, they are consumed in the East. Let there be, a template to show to us that even though you are producing this thing in Lagos, or your head office is in Lagos, all other states where you make sales of some of those things that add value to your organization should be able to derive more from that particular thing. And I heard clearly the chairman of that committee coming to say they came to Lagos State to appeal to them that this will affect you more. That's right. Because majority of the things you are actually enjoying, giving preference to you in terms of VAT, is not going to be attributable back to you. A lot of states, we have to take chunk of some of those things that you actually that is being produced, but because majority of the head office are domiciled in Lagos. And the open the other value this would have given is that more state governors will now have that atmosphere to grow some of those things. You ask yourself the question, why will the European countries choose the Asians to go and actually carry out manufacturing of their product? It's because of cheap labor. So if I'm going to get cheap labor outside Lagos, maybe in other developed area, won't I go to that area, set up my factory, and be able to contribute to the bottom line? But what we have is that a lot of people just holding things at the periphery are kicking these things out. So I feel we need to have an in-depth into the study of the fiscal policy set up by the government. They have good intention. We should not throw away the babies with the bathwater without having deep concentration, because we must have that equity when it comes to spreading this issue. So if you earn more, be able to contribute much more better, because imagine an high network person having 4 vehicles. You have 4 drivers. So your driver should be able to benefit. You can't compare it with somebody who is using Legacy's Benz. He should be given certain relief so that he can even walk very well on the road. So for me, I think some of the projections given by the committee set up on the fiscal policy headed by Taiwo, they should be given consideration. Let's see how much we can have, how much we can take. Because part of the things they are saying is that they are going to use technology to drive some of these things. Right. And we need it, transparency, in such a way that I'm able to see that so much is... Do you know that even some of these governors are not aware of some of the things that are going on in their state? How more people are actually consuming a product that the credit is going to another state in terms of VAT?
So are you saying this that, we have the governors that are against this, the Senate, the lawmakers that are against it, they are not really trying to exhaust the ability to debate these, tax reform bills, very easy, broadly, so that they do not just say, okay, someone said they don't like it. This region says it doesn't like it. They are not essentially exercising the length of the debate they can have on this in order to have deep insight into what this will do for the entire nation.
Yeah, I feel they need to, because I know they have continuous engagement. They need to have more and have deeper understanding of some of this thing. You can't continue to do the same thing the same way and expect different results. People are coming up, and the interesting thing is that the people that made up this particular committee are not just technocrats. It's cut across all the regions. They are not just maybe from the west or you have people from the north, east, northwest. It's across the region. We have a lot of these subnationals, chairmen for revenue agency, for those things, being part of some of these things that are actually being done. So I feel they need to actually have a deeper insight, call for engagement with the people that are concerned to give a deeper, understanding of what this will achieve. Can we do something differently from what we used to do it? And we still have our own template. If it doesn't work, we can go back and have a feel of it and let it be known to people. Because one thing I tell every individual, if you give me an assignment different from what I used to do, I won't tell you no. But that on its own give me more to learn. So I'll give it, the opportunity to see how we can succeed in it. And if it doesn't work, at least I'll be able to prove to you that at least we've all tested it. But what you've not tested, what you don't have understanding
Yeah,
about.
but I said the North has a weaker economy, so that is going to affect the northern region because of the weaker economy. So if they allow...
What brought the weaker economy is the area of insecurity. So how much are we addressing those areas? Can we speak to it? A lot of us have been agitating for, decentralizing the security apparatus. I've seen a lot of security experts come to speak about that you will be able to hold your state governor, who is considered the CSO, as of the state, accountable on the level of insecurity in your state. Enough of all the time we are rushing to Mr. President. Does Mr. President understand the looks and trend of what is actually happening there? So when you consider that your area is weak, look at what is responsible. Is it in terms of because we are not providing those people are providing infrastructure in that area within the couple of time is being brought down by miscreants. So what is the responsibility of the CSO of that state? Who is the governor? So that's why we keep saying, don't come and say, no. So those other states that are actually working, I know for Lagos, you have initiative of the NSIT, the Security Trust Fund, where you bring in private sector to contribute. They started the RRS stuff. They brought in the neighborhood watch to fortify and go to the looks and crane of the state. That is the initiative of the state, and everybody is rushing in every now and then to say, it is in Lagos that you have the money. The answer is no. You can work on your own state, provide. We keep telling them, if you don't have understanding of it, you all have meetings together, commissioners here and there. Learn from others. Don't be too big to learn from what other people. Right. Learn from other people's successes. Then with that, you can grow. But I feel we need to start decentralizing things and hold our governors. I keep asking people, federal government has pumped in a lot of funds to the state when they remove the subsidy. What growth have we seen in some of those states? People are not asking questions. It's about the federal all the time. I think people should be intentional. If your state is quite okay, everybody will come in here. What does it take with businessmen? I want to look at people who travel for where you have tax even, where they can have good business environment and go and carry out their businesses there. So if your state is accommodating for us and we can see the peace that transcends in that state, what stops me of going to set up a business in the East? You think that I will be so wise as we speak to go to a place that every Monday that I consider to be a starting day of the week, you will say that I should not go out, and you feel that I can go there to go and invest? And what is the state governor of that state doing to make sure that you cop those particular things? So these are areas we need to look into and let the state judiciously be intentional to use some of the funds. It's not about using it alone to say I'm paying minimum wage, 100,000, 85,000, 70,000. No, those that are not in the coffers of the government to have access to these funds as civil servants. Can you look for a way to make sure, if I go to a state and I start up a business, do you know the number of people that you are going to recruit? If an educational sector go and set up maybe a school in that area, you're going to recruit teacher, gatesmen, and every other person. You will grow the state. But if the state is not secure, how much investment do you expect to come into that place that you'll be able to grow your economy as a state? These are areas we should start looking to and reduce the pressure that we give to the center. But
again, it's like analysts will say, it's not going to be a walk in the park. It's not going to be what you would call a low-hanging fruit. And if we agree that that is so, if I'm following your conversation on enhancing growth and development in all of Nigeria, inclusive of the northern region, so if we are going to say that it's not going to be something that will happen overnight, can we also extend our arguments to interventions by the federal government? As the economy was in shambles, the Tinubu administration inherited that kind of economy. Right. So to get that improvement that we seek, are we on the right track? If we now do the corrections that you have spoken about, sustaining these policies instead of the flip-flops that you say you have observed, can we also extend that argument to the federal government by saying this is not something, the growth, we can't expect that growth automatically?
Kemi, when you ask that the federal government should extend, some of this thing, what other encouragement do you want to give to a state, possibly before now, was collecting 10 billion. I'm just using that hypothetically. And after the removal of subsidies, now getting 70 billion. That's times 7 of what you've been getting. And there are still no improvement in that state. And the federal government is not saying that I'm not going to disburse that to you because FAC allocation is being shared on a monthly basis. They are still getting it. But we are not seeing commensurate development in some states. And you can't ask questions. I've said, for me, let's have this less attraction to the federal government.
Yes, that point is noted.
Let's have that and concentrate more on the state. It's high time individuals start asking the issue of autonomy being granted to local government. How much are we monitoring that particular aspect for the grassroots people to have a feel of some of the things? People are buying petrol at a very high exorbitant price. They are supposed to have some relief at the local government level. So when you talked about let government look at ways, and that's why we say federal government, remove your hand in the issue of saying security, so that somebody won't come with paper and say, sir, I've come to you. I saw with the IGP. It's not. You have a CP in your state. What are the strategies that is actually putting in place to make sure that your state stay secured? Enough of transferring the blame. You can set up your own military base. We have a lot of vigilantes that are actually out there. Enhance them to make sure that they go to the looks and crane to make your state governable. I think that's the path we need to go. The government cannot, to me, at the federal central, cannot do much more than they are doing by giving much more to you. Because we ask ourselves, where is that accountability of that has been given to you?
So you're saying the government at the central is still doing so much, and perhaps the results of what it is doing would be seen if the state governments are doing what they are set up to do or voted in to do.
Correct. Because most of the thing I have observed, my personal observation, is that we seem to be concentrating more on personnel costs than other infrastructure. I will tell people that care to know, don't compete with Lagos State. There are structures that are actually there for other developmental projects. Somebody will say Lagos is paying 85. Can I go the route of saying, no, if I can't pay 75, I pay 78? Is it about that competition we are talking about? If it is the 70,000 you can pay, go ahead. If you cannot even pay it, let the government know that we can't sustain this particular thing. It's late because it's already been signed into law. Into
law. The NGF, the Governors Forum, also had a say.
They were all there. Yeah. They contributed to it. No, it's not that you've actually. It's not about the personnel costs. We appreciate the fact that the staff, but we need to concentrate more on the people outside the coffers of the government that the government needs to do a lot for, and it's in the area of the SMEs. The woman that is selling crayfish on the road. The woman, the barber that is close to you and I. Thank God for innovation of technology. I was at my barber shop. He said, sir, we can't continue with this, your clipper. I said, what is the issue? He said, we now have rechargeable clipper. That these days, they can't afford fuel. And the cost of energy is not there. So they just go ahead, charge the clippers, and ask me. I have to just procure that so that because when I get there and it's not on in his generator or this, I won't be able to barb.
Unfortunately, you still need power. To run. You still need power because do you want to barb inside the heat? You can't have your hair cut inside the heat.
But do you know that they can stay in front of an open?
Well,
and there are options now.
There are so many. See, you need to bring out that creativity.
You might even want to do it yourself, in your home.
I have a lot of
or people that will come.
I don't understand why you decide to start keeping your ears. These days, I just on my own in the house, just go ahead and put mirror in front of me and level that. But you get it right. So you can imagine. There was one my barber said. He said I went to a particular family that I used to barb the children. During holiday, the man said, don't bother to come. They are on holiday, so let them live there. When they are about to go to school, it's the school that is actually complaining that they need to keep not to keep their ear.
The owner of the head is not complaining.
The owner of the so you can see a lot of things that is actually coming. People need to adjust to some of this.
So while we are adjusting, and then you've said it a whole lot. The federal government now giving more monies to the state, but in what way are we getting it wrong? I know the media oftentimes we sit here and talk about calling those who are in the authorities to question, to be accountable, to be transparent in anything that they do. But who are the rest of the people that are not doing their job? Is it, if the media is doing its job, is it the people themselves that are not really doing their job in calling these people to account? Because every time we can recite the national budget offhand, but not everyone knows about the state budget and the local government. States are presenting their budgets. It's more like they are going unnoticed.
Yeah, Shita, I think it's just an issue of mindset. Possibly the way we grow. The only thing we hear, possibly on the first day of the year, is Mr. President addressed us. How many states address their own citizens? If Mr. President is doing his own on the first, I think it's entrenched on states to come out and give their plans. How often do we engage the stakeholders, repeatedly? How much information do we provide to the media? I'm not talking of those window dressing information, the reality. Yeah. Speaking to it to say, indeed, we understand the plight of an average citizen, but these are the things that we're actually doing on the part of the state government. We have some of those states, just very few states. It's not the issue of few things you come and you have a paid this thing. Speak to some of the problems, because you cannot claim that you don't have access to those problems being faced by people that are in your state. You should be able to address it, because most of the things I say at times, being projected are the successes that those people are able to achieve. You come and somebody is saying he's given 500 NAPEP, this one is given this wherever.
And that does it. You
ask yourself, do you even monitor whether those things you are provided, possibly in the north, they've migrated that your Keke Marua to Lagos to come and enrich the development and contribute to the bottom line of those in Lagos? How much of it do you monitor?
Okay. A fine place to leave our conversation. Monitoring is key now, and we hope we indeed get it right on this and every other indicator. Sheson Okwade, thank you very much for your time with us.
It's always a pleasure to start the day with you.
Have a great day indeed.
Thank you.